Acts chapter 12. Now, this is kind of a short chapter, and it's a little bit different because it goes from, we were just about ready to get into Paul's journey, but instead we're going to jump over to this. And it's interesting. It says, about that time, King Herod Agrippa began to persecute some of the believers in the church. So he had the apostle James killed with the sword. So there's another martyr. And when Herod saw how much this pleased the Jewish people, the non-Christians he's talking about, he also arrested Peter. And so this took place during Passover, and he imprisoned him. He placed him under guard, and then Herod wanted to bring Peter out for public trial after Passover, which was probably pretty nerve-wracking to Peter, because Jesus had earlier told him, if you remember this in John, Jesus said that Peter, in essence, he had already prophesied that Peter was going to die being crucified. Now, he's not going to die, spoiler alert, in this chapter. But it's interesting. It says in verse 5, while Peter was in prison, the church prayed very earnestly for him. That's good to know. So here the church is already, they're beginning to understand what's going on here. They're praying for one of their leaders. And you can read what happens next. Peter miraculously escapes from prison. It's really a great account here. But sort of a funny thing in verse 9, it says Peter left the cell. He followed the angel that was breaking him out of jail, but all the time he thought he was having a vision. He didn't realize it was actually happening to him. Okay, but it was. You can read that. It's interesting. He gets away. He goes to the place where a lot of the disciples were staying. He's knocking on the door, and a girl comes to the door. It was so overjoyed. It's kind of comical that this is in this chapter. She's so overjoyed, so she runs out to tell everyone that Peter's there, but she never let him in. So kind of a humorous scene there. Peter's knocking at the door, and finally they come to the door and they open the door. They see him. They're amazed. This is just one story of kind of a cute, quaint story at this point of the early church and sort of the camaraderie and what's going on in the early church and the excitement. Even though it was dangerous, it was also exciting to be a part of the early church. And then at the bottom of this, it's an interesting little aside of what happens when you're on the wrong side. It says that back to King Herod Agrippa, he's in there, and he's with a crowd of people, and they gave him a great standing ovation, saying that this is the voice of God, not man. And so an angel of the Lord struck Herod with sickness because he accepted the people's worship. And so he was consumed with worms and he died. Okay, so that's verse 23. And the other side then is verse 24. Meanwhile, the word of God continued to spread, and there were many new believers. So this is certainly in there for us to understand. There are two sides here. And we're going to see that all throughout the Bible. We already have throughout the Bible. And in the world, it's always this way. There's two sides. There's the light and there's the dark. There's God's side, and then there's the other side. And it's really worth it to be on the other side. So you're ready now to read Acts chapter 12. Go ahead and do that, and then we'll see you tomorrow for chapter 13.